Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, today I have Andrew Seaton on the line, and he is author of the newly released book, Spiritual Awakening Made Simple: How to See Through the Mist of the Mind to the Peace of the Here and Now. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Good to talk with you.
All right, Andrew. So first off, congrats. Never easy to finish a book or release a book. I mean, how you feeling?
Well, very satisfied that it's out there, because it wasn't just the process of writing the book, in the last year or two, but most of my life has been like a preparation and a lead up to this, so it feels very satisfying to get this book out there.
Oh, man. Well, congratulations, and I'm excited to do my little part to help my audience know, and I definitely want them to go check this out. It was really easy to find on Amazon. I just literally typed in Spiritual Awakening Made Simple, and when I got to the made, it was already popping up the simple, so good stuff there. So just to kick us off, Andrew, so what was the inspiration for this book?
Well, that's a huge question, but I'll keep it very short. I've been most of my working life working in the field of education, but especially digging deep in that field to try and find out what is really possible in terms of human potential, human functioning. How do we really help a human being, especially as a child, but ongoing? How do we help a human being really blossom and really open up all of the faculties and capabilities that are inherent in being a human being? And I was very frustrated for many, many years in the field of education, because the schooling system, you could hardly design something less helpful in terms of awakening all of the faculties of a human being. It's got its advantages, but it's got lots of disadvantages. And so, about 15 years ago, I finished a PhD research, which I titled Investing in Intelligence: An Inquiry into Educational Paradigm Change, really digging deep into what's the nature of learning and what's the nature of knowledge, the knowledge that we take for granted so much, both our day-to-day personal knowledge and the knowledge that we acquire, in our educational programs. What's really the nature of knowledge, and what's the nature of human intelligence, or the possible nature of human intelligence? And I found that there was an incredible mismatch between what's really understood well, if we dig around, about how human beings function well, and the way that our education system functions and kind of brings us into the world as adults. So this book emerged out of that. It's a reflection of what I came to understand about how there's a part of us, the essence of us really, an awareness or a consciousness which is beyond the conditioned thinking that most of us live out moment by moment, day by day, year by year, that we can awaken when we start to question and realize that so much of the thinking that goes on, automatic thinking, most of it, can be found to be false or not reality. We take so much for granted, this idea that what we know about who I am and about the world around me and the people around me, that's reality. But actually, it's not. It's really just a mental construction that we've built up, each of us slightly differently, sometimes quite differently, based on our early childhood, our own pattern of family life and conditioning through schooling and so forth. So this will be of interest to your listeners, most of whom probably are very involved in or interested in the field of business, because the way that we are raised and grow up into life and the way that we function tends, as I say, to be mostly patterns of conditioning. And this is not helpful when you're in an entrepreneurial situation or a business situation where you really want to be able to see things as they are in reality. You don't want to be, confused or tricked into misperceiving what's going on within you, and you don't want to be misperceiving, where other people that you're interacting with are coming from, and what patterns they may be playing out that aren't all that authentic. So this book, Spiritual Awakening Made Simple, came out of this long search that I've had into how do we help a human being really wake up to the creativity and the peaceful contentedness and the intuitive capacities that are within us, but which are so seldom realized.
So I want to give the audience just a feel for the kind of the flavor of the layout of the book. So can you share with us, not to give away too much, but I want to give them an idea. Can you share us one of the stories maybe or lessons from the book that just kind of that you think would be a good kind of like intro to what people can expect overall for the content?
That's probably one of the toughest questions I've been asked, Adam, but I'll try.
And I'll throw this out there, Andrew. It's not a tough question. It's a terrible question. It's like saying, Adam, have me choose between my kids or something else that you may like in this book. It's the worst question ever, just to be clear. But I do understand that, I want people to have a little bit of the flavor of the book.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from, and I was only thinking about this yesterday that, the book's not a long book. It's about 100 pages, but it's very, very methodical, and as I say, it contains the distillation of virtually a lifetime's investigations. And so I was only thinking yesterday about how in an interview, you get a question about this, or you get a question about some statement that I make in the second last chapter, and you think, how am I going to answer that? Because all the previous chapters have been laid out in order to be a foundation for the statement that I make in that second last chapter. So it's kind of weird and strange, and as long as your listeners appreciate the fact that this book really is something to read, and not just to read as interesting concepts about the subject matter, but it's very experiential. It helps them to discover for themselves. I don't ask people to believe anything that I say about, the awakening of human faculties and potential, but to discover as they read through. So, Adam, in terms of the layout of the book, as I say, it's very important for me to just say that it's a very concise distillation. It's a very methodical laying out of what's possible in terms of human functioning. How did we come to be so much constrained by conditioning, and how does it actually work that our conditioned patterns of thinking and behaving and emotional responses to things, how does it happen that they tend to play out and create our life experience? And then when I've laid that foundation, then I lead people through a variety of ways that they can understand, but also then experience, and little methods that they can use to start unraveling and dissolving those patterns, particularly as they arise in our day-to-day experience. As they arise, how do they unravel an assumption that they've been making about themselves, for example? I'm not a person who's successful in business. A lot of people grow up in a family background where that's the kind of dominant theme. And so when they go into business, perhaps, and most of those people kind of tend not to, but if you go into business, then you've got to confront all this patterning and conditioning about, the kind of person that you are and what you're actually capable of, and are you really capable of being a successful business person? So these kinds of thoughts, I show people how to look at them, question whether you know for certain that they're true. Very simple ways to show that there's no way you can ever know that these thoughts are true for sure, and often very simple to see that there are ways that you can know that the opposite could equally be true. And so I lead people through that, and then into how to really feel able in day-to-day experience to question any thoughts, especially ones that are troubling them or confusing them, come back to kind of the peaceful presence of the awareness that they are in their essence, and then that allows creativity and intuition to flow, and more real perception of kind of what's going on, and then solutions arise that help them to, follow through with things. Now, you asked for a specific example. Let me give you a very quick example that I do give early in the book about how our perception that we so often take for granted, I'm looking at something, I'm reading something, I'm hearing something, and we think that what we're taking in is the way it is. But no, human perception is very, very interpretive and selective. And one illustration I give in the book is about how years ago I saw a science show on TV where they gave this experience. They showed a short video clip of two basketball teams, one dressed all in white, one team dressed all in black, and each team had a basketball. And so as the teams and the members of each team milled all around each other quite quickly, each team was throwing their basketball only to members of their own team. And the studio audience and the people at home were asked to count how many times does the white team pass their ball to each other. So I watched really closely and I counted 24 passes, I think it was. And then they stopped the video clip and the presenters asked the audience, how many people counted 22 passes? Yeah, a few hands went up. How many counted 23? How many counted 24? And most hands went up for 24. And the presenters really congratulated those people. And I'm sitting back thinking, wow, how good am I? I got the right answer, 24 passes. And then some guy in the studio audience says, well, excuse me, but I saw a gorilla. And everyone looks, surprised and what's this guy on about, and the presenters kind of tease him a bit. And then they said, well, really? Oh, well, let's have a look at this video clip again. And so they replay and they emphasize, this is the exact same clip we just played. And lo and behold, there's this guy dancing around amongst the two teams of basketball players dressed in a black gorilla suit. And nobody except this one person in the audience saw this black gorilla. And there's a beautiful illustration of how selective our perception is, because if it's not related to your interests or your expectations, we tend not to see things. We tend not to notice things. So, and this is so important in business, of course. You'd be very cautious about what you're expecting to perceive, because you'll tend to perceive that, even though there may be other stuff that would be most valuable for you to notice, but you're just kind of screening it out. So my book is a way to help people to get used to, in an ongoing way, more and more lifting themselves out of the perceptual habit patterns that all of us, grow up into.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. And that's a great example, and that's exactly what I wanted from you. I wanted something that's going to make somebody listening to this say, oh, man, this is a great book, number one. I need to go out and get this, because that's what I want people to do. I want them to head on over to Amazon and to check this out. So that being said, so Andrew, if somebody is listening to this and they want to connect with you or they want to learn more about the book, what's the best way for them to follow you overall?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Adam. Well, I've got a website, awakeningmadesimple.org, awakeningmadesimple.org. And there I've got the preface and the intro to the book. I've got some early comments that have come in about the book, a bit about my background, and there's a newsletter people can subscribe to if they wish. There's also a page that talks about one-on-one mentoring that I offer for people, mentoring to guide people through the process, especially if they've read the book, but even if they haven't, of awakening up to this awareness that's within us, that's beyond the mind and the body, and that really is the source of all the creativity and intuition that we want to have flow in our lives.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew, congrats again on bringing out this book. Never an easy thing to do, as all the authors out there listening know. So congrats again, and I'm wishing you much continued success. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review in the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Andrew, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for the invitation.